Yep.
Okay, I think hello, friends.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
Welcome.
How you doing? I hope there's
Nod.
people.
I don't.
What's that? Oh,
I don't
wait.
know if there's people.
We have Vix.
Yay, Vix.
Vix
So
is
sorry.
here.
She's back.
Oh,
I was like, Jay chillin', Jay chillin', Jay chillin'. Nature was like, no. I was like, what?
Never fails. I'm sure we'll have to at some point go pee.
We got some. We're becoming legit friends. We have a link tree, so I'm going to post that in the comments, and that's where our new social media will take place. We don't have anything posted, but we will because we're getting our shit together and we're getting legit because we're better than adequate.
We're getting there. Yeah.
We're getting there. So, how is everybody's week this week?
Busy.
This whole year has been
crazy.
Yeah,
it's been
grumpy.
really busy.
I mean, I know part of it's me, but it seems like everybody else is grumpy too. And
I've been grumpy this week. So bad.
I've just been really distracted. I have a conference presentation tomorrow. So it's just been a little consumed, but that's life.
What's your conference on?
It's called, the acronym is GLITTER, but it stands for Georgia Library Information Teaching and Reference Conference. And so mine is on teaching, it's titled Teaching Fake News in a Politically Polarized Climate. And so I just talking about the fake news course I teach and considerations that I made when, putting it together, how to, I really tried to eliminate potential for being accused of putting my leftist indoctrination into the course. So when we talk about media organizations, we pick from a randomizer. So it took me a lot of time, but I put every news organization from this All Sides media chart. They're a media bias rating company, and
I think
they're really cool.
Yeah,
they're really cool.
A really cool course.
So I put it all in a randomizer, and so we randomly pick. So my leftist indoctrination, leave it to the randomizer wheel. They're the one is. So just little things, what I did about that too, even though in my area, there isn't really anything politically charged, the state is, certain districts are feeling it. And then as a country, librarians everywhere are feeling it. So anyway, that's it for libraries. Now you all know
libraries, people.
Now you all know what my conference is going to be on.
It's really cool.
I do have one other thing about libraries. So we had Pride Weekend last weekend here in our little tiny rural Pennsylvania county. And we actually got our very conservative commissioners to sign off on an equality proclamation, which I'll take. And the governor sent someone to read the official Pennsylvania proclamation and officially designated that day as Pride Day in our county. So
very
nice.
Very nice.
And the next day we had a color run and a block party, and it went really, really great. Really nothing negative. I'm sure we got really good press coverage. If there's been anything negative, I didn't see it, and I'll take it. But
that's really awesome.
There representing the libraries, and it was a lot of families, which was wonderful. I was really excited to see so many families.
That's awesome.
I love to hear that. It's great.
Yeah, I love hearing things that could have gone awry, working out and everyone getting along, and it's not that serious, and librarians aren't groomers, and
exactly.
They're just trying to
spread
the information.
The only negative thing I heard is one of my libraries said that the cover story that showed us at the proclamation, one of her patrons had written a Bible verse on the paper itself in the library. But I mean, okay.
It's fine.
I mean, who saw it? The 3 people that looked at the paper that day in the library? I don't care.
Yeah.
No big deal.
So, speaking of religion and Bible verses, today we're going to talk about women and religion because that is a topic that really should get talked about. A lot of women feel trapped in by religion, oftentimes in awful situations. So, we're just going to see where the conversation takes us, and if anybody in the comments has something to say. Before we really get into it, you want to give us a like, maybe share this to Twitter or something like that.
Like and share.
That's right. If we're
There's
legit, we
our
got to say all
grift.
those things, don't we?
Yeah, we need to get a lucrative sponsorship like Pizzeria Hug Spot and stuff.
As Cynthia would say,
That's where Tony makes all his money.
Yeah,
His Pizzeria Hug Spot.
I
Hi,
love it.
Super Saint. You made it.
Yay, Super
Yay,
Saint is
welcome,
here.
Super Saint.
It's always nice when we get new faces in the audience. It's good to see you guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
We
so
all do.
nice. You're gonna come listen to us gals gab
Talk about the stuffs.
the things.
So anyway.
So like the pregnancy conversation, I'm the oddball because I did not grow up in a religious family, and my experience with religion was I was really curious about it because I did grow up in the South and in small towns, and I saw other people really into it and thought that was, great, and I would have loved to have felt that that connection and whatever. But the few churches that me and my sister did try out, we had bad timing and always ended up with a sermon that felt personally attacky, and so just never was into it. So I don't have the personal experiences you guys have, but I'm very curious about your experiences because I've heard some horror stories.
I can't really complain. I grew up in the Methodist church in a small town, but I had, when you have friends, you visit. I mean, shit, you did. If there was a vacation Bible school, everybody staggered them, so you knew what Bible schools you were gonna hit that summer. Okay, so
Yeah.
because that was the thing to do, right? So, but I was raised Methodist. I really didn't have anything negative. Everybody in my church was always very loving. I mean, and of course, but as you get older, you get a little jaded because sometimes when I got older, I felt like I was lied to a little bit. And, especially, but now Methodists have kind of, with gay, they're doing that now. But there was and that may have just been a personal thing for me because I felt guilty every time I walked into that church. Why? I don't know. And as soon as people would start singing, I'd start crying. I'm like, I didn't like that because I'm like, I shouldn't be here feeling guilty for everything in my life. Because I was you're programmed that way when you're kind of raised in a church, right? I mean, you're just like, you're a good girl and, all this other bullshit. Okay. Yeah. But when I got older and I saw that, you know what? A lot of people don't treat others. You're lying. You're lying because you are not treating other people the same. It's a lie. It's a lie. I was mad. I was angry because I'm like, you're not accepting. You say Jesus loves everybody, but
yeah, and like I grew up Catholic. Because in New York, when you're white, you're either Catholic or Jewish, and I wasn't Jewish, so we were and religion wasn't like we had morals, but it wasn't tied to religion. And I did CCD for 8 years to do Holy Communion and all the sacraments and stuff, because that's just what you did, and you just do what you always do. Like my parents voting Republican, that's the way it's always been. So I went through the motions. But when I moved to Georgia and had my daughter, I was going to do what I always did, what my mommy did before me and her mammy did for her before her, was get her baptized in the Catholic Church. So I had to start hanging out with the Catholics. And the Catholic Church I grew up in and the Catholic Church they have here, two totally different churches. And like, I'm not really sure back home's church stance on like gay issues and that kind of stuff, but they definitely preached a lot more love and were closer to what the word of God is supposed to be versus here. Like, I was 30 years old when I had my daughter. These women I was talking with, they were in, not much, definitely not older than me, but around my age or younger. There was one girl who was 23 years old who had 4 kids. Okay. Because they truly believe in natural family planning. So I was ready to lie to them in the church. I was ready to lie that Emily was my miracle baby. That's how, how unnerved I was by their determination. So then, long story short, I ended up with the Southern Baptist because I really loved the pastor. He could have been Methodist. He could have been Presbyterian. He could have been whatever. I just really loved the pastor. I had a really wonderful relationship with him. My husband has a really wonderful relationship with him. And then he retired. And that when he retired, in like 2021, 22, when COVID was still kind of going on, that's when things kind of fell apart with that church. And I started seeing the uglier sides of things. And there was not one thing that, and I've told you guys this too, but for anybody watching, there wasn't any one thing that drove me to stop going. Surface level, everybody's real nice. Everybody was real kind to me. In certain things, they would help me, support me. When raccoon fell through my ceiling, another podcast, and just wrecked our house, food, money, like they were really, really kind. But Trump getting elected triggered something in the Christian community, particularly Southern Baptists, that is put them in rare form. Because, our church would go to Hispanic communities to bring Thanksgiving dinner. And our pastor would say, we're not here to question. We're here to spread the word of God and give some families food. And then Trump gets elected and we stop doing that. And, just little, and I could feel people getting angry with, because I can't keep my mouth shut. Like, I can't hear blatantly false things and not say something. And they would humor me before Trump. And then after Trump, I could just feel it getting like shorter.
More hostile?
Not even hostile. More eye rolls, more like I could hear their thoughts of, man, she's woke. Somebody did call me woke once.
More like,
and that was before it was even popular. Yeah. So it's just like little things I could tell that my thoughts and my way of life thinking were slowly not being welcomed there anymore. So I don't want to make anybody's church experience horrible, because that's your church experience. But I'm not going to wake up every day at dark 30 to run. And this is the thing, like during COVID, I was streaming their sermons. Me and my husband were on this skeleton crew, and they all wanted to run their mouths about COVID, stupid COVID, no mask, blah, 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 blah. And funny, I didn't see any of y'all during COVID when when the complete lockdown was over and we could gather in smaller groups. I mean, it was a small church to begin with, but so and then all of a sudden, you want to be Billy Badass and talk about how you hate masks, it's just like little things like that really drove me insane. So I'm not going to wake up at dark 30, do all this work for free, and then feel like shit at the end of the day. And that's a lot of the reason why people don't go to church, because people can wake up early and feel like shit for free and stay home and do that. They don't need to go to church to have other people tell them how shitty they are or what they do is shitty. So
Exactly.
so sorry that kind of went a lot of different ways, but that my life went a bunch of different ways. So what about you,
Hi.
Vix?
I think we
Hi,
all kind
I grew up Mormon, so I have so
Ugh.
much to say on it.
of, good
It
gosh.
starts at birth. As soon as you're born, a couple days after you're out of the hospital or whatever, as soon as they feel comfortable taking you in public, the parents do. They take you to your local congregation, and you are what's called blessed by your dad and like a bunch of the men from your congregation. They stand in a circle, and everybody kind of holds the baby, and the dad says a prayer over them, saying, we're praying to God to hope that you grow up to be a strong young woman that finds a righteous young man to get married to in the temple, and you'll have several children, and you'll go to the temple faithfully, and you'll always pay your tithing and remain faithful, and an upstanding woman that believes in modesty and all this and does good. And anyway, they plan out your whole life for you as a baby. And then you go to church every Sunday, and you're expected to. And the indoctrination starts when you're 3, I think. Is when they start in with like teaching you the different songs and the little lessons, and little bit by little bit, they teach you what you can be, what you're not allowed to be, what is evil to be. Like if you get a sad feeling, or if you're depressed, or if you're really angry with your brother because they're being a dick, or whatever it is, those aren't natural feelings. No, those are satanic feelings, and you need to pray to get rid of those. So not only can you not talk to anybody about them, but you're evil for fucking feeling them. That's what it's like to grow up Mormon, and it gets worse. That's an intense introduction. Does anybody have questions? Sorry.
No, I really relate to something that you said about like it starts when you're young, and like what you're expected of, and sometimes those expectations are self-imposed. So like no one ever told. Actually, I had the opposite. I was told, I am woman, hear me roar, because I'm growing up at the very tail end of women's lib, which is even more surprising with my parents turning. They're not MAGA, but they're definitely Trumpers. But you didn't talk about your feelings, because that's just not what we do. So it wasn't satanic to feel those things, but it was useless and pointless. Just let it go, shut up and deal, keep it moving. So like the same toxicity, but it wasn't imposed on religion. But one of the reasons why I stayed with my monster of an ex-husband was because I would have been the first person in my family to be divorced. And like fast forward from that point a few years, I don't know why I was so like, I thought that people would judge me about it, because my parents didn't. They were actually very warm and understanding, especially under the circumstances. Mm-hmm. But like, when you grow up in religion, it's like sometimes you have indoctrination that carries over. Now, I didn't have really any indoctrination of religion. It was like, don't steal, don't cheat, don't come home pregnant. That was the one big thing. Don't come home pregnant. Just the basics, be a good person, morality was taught, but I still had that from religion. I can't get divorced. Like God hates divorce. Like that was still ingrained in me. And I stayed much longer in a terrible marriage because I was so afraid, or that was one of the reasons I was kind of afraid to leave.
I think
Sorry.
it's interesting. What I heard all three of you say, and what I've heard other people say, is that so much of their religious experience was tied up in guilt and shame. And to me, what they portray outwardly is the fellowship and the unity and the love of the church. But most people, a lot of people I've talked to, and all three of you expressed it, was the shame and the guilt associated with it instead, and the judgment. And that's sad. And I think that's why so many people in the last few decades have left the church, is because I don't, you know, I can feel like you said, I can feel like shit at home alone. I can be a heathen and feel like shit about myself.
And
I don't need
it's,
to
you know,
tell me no
it's
shit.
it breaks my heart too, because
It does.
my experience with faith hasn't been all bad. In fact, my faith
No,
saved
not
me.
either, but
Saved me. Like, saved me through some dark, dark times. I still believe, but I'm still open-minded about. I'm certain that there was a Jesus. I'm certain there is some higher power. I just don't know how it all works. None of us really do, but I do know there's something. And if y'all don't believe that, that's fine. But I believe that there's something up there.
I've always been a spiritual person, more, anyway, even when I don't go to church, it's not, I was raised in a good church. But it's so funny. It was like my parents made me go. Sometimes they would go, but half the time they were just making us go so they could have alone time, which, and I didn't have the most, you know what I'm saying? Like, but as a kid, and, it was great, and youth group and stuff, but man, it just, when you get out into that real world, or you're in a small town and things happen, and you just get jaded. And I'm like, I can't be part of an organization that's you're going to sit there and tell me that my sibling's going to go to hell because he's gay, or or whatever. No, after my younger brother became Catholic, so he could, because he thought, that would take his gay away. And that makes me want to fucking cry, because I was already out of the house and I wasn't there. He didn't tell anybody. And he was so struggling inside. Like, I hated, like, it still makes me cry, because I'm like, he sat there and had nobody. And he thought that he just wanted, I'm sorry, I'm going to cry, because it hurts my heart that anybody has to sit there and think that I've got to do this and God will take this gay away.
I feel like any part of you is wrong.
It makes me sad. It makes me sad that, if Jesus is God and love, then quit fucking telling people that immigrants are bad and migrants are bad and this, that, and Muslim people. I'm so tired of it, because you know what? I don't see other religions. There's people that are so respectful of other people's, like our religion, respectful. Why can't we just be respectful?
They should, if you're going to like intrude in somebody's life with your faith, like, you better have your shit down, because it boggles my mind. This part boggles my mind with MAGA particularly.
Yeah,
we have to stop asylum seek. We have to stop everyone from coming into our country, because we can't support this many people. But you're going to believe in a religion that tells you that Jesus turned 5 fish to feed the feast of 5,000 and had enough wine to support that. And back in the day, in biblical times, they didn't count women in that count. That's men. There were women there for the first time. And so there was more than likely 10 to 15,000 people. So you mean to tell me, when God says, have faith and I will provide, why would you turn people? Jesus himself was an immigrant. Jesus himself was a refugee. do we forget like the first like days of his life? Like,
They take
what
what's
is wrong?
convenient though
And
and
but then they
ignore
pick
what
and they
doesn't fit
cherry
their
pick
narrative.
from the Old Testament, which pisses me off.
Mhm.
And
Sorry.
that, like,
You know.
and if you should, like, the Old Testament is done with the
Done.
crucifixion
That's
of
the Old
Christ.
Testament.
The veil fell down, and like we don't have to like. I don't even know why we have to pay attention to the Old Testament. Really, I mean, I guess it's for historical.
I just
You know,
it makes me sad because I think you preach all this shit and you're a Christian, but yet you act like you're not. And I'm tired of people being hypocrites. We are here together on this planet, so why can't we just respect each other's shit?
Right? It's not that hard.
It's not that hard.
When I think
It's
we
not,
mentioned
and
this
I
last
hate,
week,
I
but
hate. I just want people to love each other, and if I could go out into the world and hug everybody, I would. And I understand that not everybody's like that, but Jesus preached that. When we get down to the bottom, what was his message?
It's what a lot
And
of
that's- we talked
religion's
about this-
message is kindness,
we
loving
were
each
talking about
other,
this
being a
last
decent
last
person.
week.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it just,
Yeah.
it just, that's
You're
what
right.
makes me pissy, because I'm like, that is not what he taught.
Well, and I think as a non-religious person, I studied religion. That's what my bachelor's degree's in because I was fascinated by it. And what I found so fascinating about it was that all of them, they're tied to culture, very like particularly the Old Testament has a whole bunch of so and so begot so and so begot so and so. Like this is all to tell you what your history is as a people.
Chronicles
Makes
and
sense
Numbers.
as an anthropological thing. It makes sense, but in modern life, not that important. But all faiths have these basic principles about how to live and how to survive. And all of them go back to basic concepts, like we said, golden rule kind of things, like be a good person, take care of one another. And if religious people sat down and let go of the details and just talked about the larger message, they'd see that they believe largely the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The details change. It's one of the things, I'm not to endorse any particular faith, but the only church I've ever felt like completely accepted in, when I was doing my undergraduate, we had to do you had to basically go to a church that wasn't your own faith, and you had to experience it as like an anthropologist, more or less, and experience it. And me and my girlfriend went to a Unitarian Universalist church in Winston-Salem.
I was
and
thinking you were going to
it
say
was,
that.
yeah, it was so amazing. It was my first experience in a church where people immediately came up and were like, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much for coming. It's so good to see you. Here, come sit by me." And then the pulpit wasn't raised, it was at the same level as everyone else. The preacher wasn't really a preacher. And Unitarians believe that all paths lead to the truth. And so there were pagans there were Jewish people there were Muslims, there was every kind of faith imaginable. And he would just ask a question and people would stand up and respond, and it was like a conversation. It was beautiful. I loved it so much. But when we moved and I attended it, I was so excited to start going regularly after we graduated. I went to a different one. It was like every church I grew up with in Texas. It was who could wear the fanciest clothes and who could tithe the most, and it was bullshit. And you
Yawn.
mentioned, the preacher changing, and it changing the whole atmosphere of the church. And
Yeah.
that's a big part of it, because at the end of the day, the faith is the faith, but the people involved are what set the tone. And that's what so
Right.
much of the MAGA situation with religion is that they're cherry picking what's useful to them, and they're using that power to set their own agenda. And if that means holding down women or holding down minorities or holding down whatever, that's what they're going to do. And that's gross. Like, that's not what any of it was supposed
No.
to be. But I mean, human nature is human nature. You're going to have people that are going to abuse it. I mean, look at the books of the Bible they chose to include and the ones that are not
they
considered
didn't.
canon. And they're in conflict with each other. Even if you look at the first few books of the Bible, all of these are apostles that were at the same event. They report it completely differently if you pay attention, because that's human nature.
Well, the apostles also didn't live together at the same time. Like the book of Luke, I think, is like 100 years after Christ was crucified. So, like,
and that's a big part of it. They were written at different times. So it's like,
Times
I mean,
and-
how can you
yeah.
reflect on what someone said that you never met? And you only have the word of what somebody who lived 100 years ago told you. That
You
they
know,
remember
this is
them
good.
saying.
this is going to sound really out there, and part of what I totally believe aliens exist. I believe because like I just do. Like I can't get into the whole thing, but
It's possible.
like so I've heard people say that aliens can't exist because they're not in the Bible. Do you know how much shit isn't in the Bible that exists? And then, first of all, you're limiting God's almighty power. If
Oh,
he
and
can create,
Aquaphor is good for everything.
that's not in, my Jones
Yeah.
Road, Dusty Rose wasn't in the Bible. It exists. Like, so, but, and then like it says in the beginning, actually I forgot the first line, but it says the heavens plural and the earth. Heavens plural. And God made man in our image, plural. So I think the people, the really out there, like, not really out there, the ones that have a solid base in ancient history that like go back even before the Egyptians, I think there's something to it because they look at these old chiseled, what do you call it when it's like chiseled in stone? Like it just makes sense to me. Like, yeah, like it just makes sense to me that I think the Bible tells some stories about the past, but I don't think it is the be all and end all. It could be God inspired in the respect that that's what he wants us to know, or a starting off point or whatever. But I don't think that the earth was created in 6 days. It might be a metaphor for so we can understand it, because humans are simpletons in the grand scheme of things. So like there's a whole shitload of things we don't know because we just don't know it.
Yeah.
So like, how do you know God didn't create aliens? How do you know there aren't aliens? How do you know there like, so like, but anyway, a lot of the real ancient tablets of like, they really link a lot of different faiths together. And then like every ancient religion has a flood story. So I believe I'm not sure if Noah took all the animals on a boat, but I know a flood happened.
Dinosaurs too. I'm just kidding.
Like no. So like, like even the Native Americans believe there was a great flood. But anyway, that's not about
what's
women.
Interesting is, yeah, if you look at the history of religion, which is what I found the most fascinating, is you can see a through line where there's beginning faiths like Zoroastrianism and so forth, and then they evolve into sects that become these other faiths. And particularly when it comes to the Western religions, Judaism, the various Christianity sects, and then also Islam, they're based on many of the same texts. And so Cynthia made a really good point. When we talk about the Bible, you have to keep in mind that there are multiple official editions. There's all of the translations. There are people, their full-time job is being religious or biblical scholars studying what this word originally was, what that may have meant at that time, etc. Like there's a whole bunch of scholarship tied to that is fascinating. So to take
lost in translation, pretty much.
Right. So
I didn't know there was a Catholic Bible. Till I moved here, I didn't know there was a separate Catholic Bible where they had the Gnostic Gospels included in them. Like I had no idea about. That's the kind of Catholic Church. I had they gave us a King James Bible, maybe just because it was free.
I got a King James Bible when I graduated high school.
But like, I mean, and a King James Bible is kind of sacrilege in a Catholic church. Maybe just because they were free. I don't know. That's what I got after Holy Communion was a King James Bible version. And but anyway, going back to like circling back to more about females and religion, before we started the podcast, I just typed into bible.com divorce, and like they manipulate it. A bunch of different versions come up too. And like, I hate that they manipulate women into God hates divorce. Well, it says like, talk about translations. They use women submit to your husbands. And they don't like, it's not supposed to be submission, like submit. It's supposed to be respect your husband. If you go back to the original Aramaic words, and I'm taking somebody else's word for that, but and then it says, and husbands, love your wife like you love Jesus. So if those two, like, if one of those, like, you can't have your wife submitting if you don't treat your wife and love her like you would Jesus Christ. So that right there, it, like, cancels out, like, and the way it's described in the Bible of marriage, like, there's the Holy Trinity is man, wife, God, and they're braided together. But if one of those strands comes out, you're not in line with God. So, like, if you got some asshole being a douche to his wife, cheating on her, like, you're forcing her to remain in something that isn't biblical anymore. I mean, like, it even says in lots of different scriptures, like, if there's infidelity, you're supposed to allow your wife to divorce you. No, they don't bring that part off, but they sure as hell want to drill into the, like, especially the more fundamental sects, they want to drill into them that you're going against God's will. No one's going to love you. No one's going to, and like, no one told me that, but it was in my head, like, that, that I would be like this epic failure being the first person ever divorced in my family. My parents have been married 50 something years. My grandparents, before they both passed away, were married like 67 years, I think.
And
So,
my
like,
grandparents were married like 73 years before my papa passed away.
and like, everybody is still, so, like, it felt, I put that burden on myself from, like, and I've heard other women who are in these terrible marriages. Being an army wife, there's a lot of terrible marriages. They'll say, well, I'm a Christian, I don't believe in divorce.
Oh, Lord Almighty.
This
Do
is
they not
not a
believe in
biblical
having a happy
marriage.
life either?
There
Or-
is scripture that says your marriage is not biblical right now. So, and God forgives all. God will forgive you. And that's just a form of abuse too, from religious manipulation. And if any, like, woman hears this along the line, like, it's not biblical. You can leave. You don't, like, it's not holy to be treated like shit and abused. It's not.
My mom
Read the
stayed for
Bible.
30 years. 30 years too long.
Particularly Malachi 2:16 and Matthew chapters 5 and 19. Go over those, and you deserve better. That's all I gotta say
Well,
to
and I
people
think
that I don't know are listening.
particularly Islam and some of the more fundamentalist Christian sects have very clearly taken the religious ideas and imposed upon them societal values of patriarchy and misogyny. Many of them forbid women from being involved in the practice of religion in general. Particularly in Islam, men and women aren't even supposed to pray together or be in the same room when they worship and so forth. There's a lot of different ideas there that are taken to multiple extremes and based on all these various things.
And that
But
broke
what's
the veil.
interesting,
Oh,
yeah. But what's really interesting is if you look at older faiths, many of them are women led, and because part of it being because women give birth and that's considered and bleed and don't die, like, are considered quite miraculous. But particularly among Native American tribes, many of the Asian and Euro-Asian countries, India, there's female. I mean, Romans and Greeks. I mean, the whole pantheon is full of women as well that are held in similar esteem to the male counterparts and so forth. And they talk very much about balance between feminine and masculine energy and so forth. I feel like, and we've mentioned this, but like, when you realize that you've generated power within a structure, and the church obviously has generated a great deal of power over time, those people use that power to enforce their own ideas, societal ideas, but also to consecrate their power. And if they had a wife that they weren't happy with, then yeah, they hate women and now they're going to push that on everyone else, or whatever the situation may be. But those are cultural things, not religious things, but they're tying them together. And that's a big part of the issue, is that we're equating cultural and religious as one thing, and they're not the same thing. They can exist separately and are intertwined as well.
That's a
It's
very
just the
good
fact
point.
that now they're trying to interweave, and pass, make us do things because how they believe, like, especially for us. Like just today, what did the Senate, voted against IVF, right? I mean,
So that
But at
right
the
there
same
should tell you
time, so
something.
I'm like, I knew they were going to,
right,
I told everybody, they're coming for every single thing. If you think they're just coming for one thing, you're wrong.
Roe should have, like, they said that they weren't going to, they were going for Roe. They went for Roe. Open up your eyes. I know, like, I get the denial you want to be in. I want to be in denial. I would love to crawl under a rock and just live life like,
Yeah.
would love
Yeah,
to.
we
But
don't have that luxury.
we don't have that luxury right now. Every
No.
generation has its fight, and this is ours.
Yep.
And or maybe this is our second or third fight, but it's
well, and
still
some
a
of the
fight that
arguments
needs
they
to be
make,
had.
yeah, some of the arguments they make about IVF and birth control and so forth is it's God's will. And it's like, well, then it's God's will for you to have a limp dick, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, or
Like, is your
cancer.
God's will to
Sorry
die of
about
pneumonia?
it.
I don't know.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
a fever when you
What
were
about
2.
science? People can have
God
babies now that couldn't
discernment
before.
too. Let's
Right?
discern.
Well, and someone earlier in the chat mentioned, and I'm so sorry, I don't remember who it was, that religion is a substitute for answers when you don't know. And it's how you it so we've taught our granddaughter that it's not magic, it's science. Like magic is just the science we don't understand yet, basically. And like religion fills that hole when you don't know the answer, and we don't. I mean, yes, we know the Big Bang created the universe, but we're always going to have the question of what came before that or what caused it. Like it is what it is. We're never going to get that answer, that definitively that answer, because there's always going to be a beginning, and that just, logical fallacy. How does that work? But the problem is religion has doubled down on very ancient texts when science has evolved. And so we do know why those things happen now. We do know why, like keeping kosher or whatever. There are cultural reasons to do that based on their climate, the food available to them, the diseases, etc. But we know now how to properly, cook pork, for example, so that you don't get sick, or store it or whatever. And so the prohibitions that were placed on it culturally for very practical reasons are not necessary. And like the idea of being possessed or whatever, like if we look at it through a modern lens, those people probably had mental health issues. We understand that now, not as well as we should, but we do. So like, not that science is a religion, though for some people it can be, but it has filled in many of those gaps, and they're trying to just skip right back.
And sometimes
to that
science is
idea.
wrong, and it's okay. Like it's,
But that's the whole point of science, is to be wrong and to work more and figure out a better answer, and then it's fail and then fail better, basically, over and over again.
Yeah. But they still have a right to tell anybody what they can do with my.
I don't
Yeah.
understand why people feel the need to like insert themselves in the whole culture of America. Like there's no great reward. Yeah, you're supposed to sow seeds and all that crap. But it's forced. I mean, even Jefferson said forced belief isn't belief. It's you're for. That's one of the reasons they advocated for a separation of church and state, because if you're going to force somebody to believe, that's not genuine faith. So, and it's pointless. And we went through this.
One of the major tenets of Christianity is the concept of free will. So you're denying one of the core things that God gave us was the ability to have free will by saying we must believe a certain way. So you're better than God. Okay, I get it. Like, that doesn't even make sense. They don't like that logical argument, by the way.
Like, you don't have to have an abortion. You don't have to watch porn. You
That's
don't have to do a lot of sinful, immoral things. And there's lots of people who don't want to do sinful, immoral, and I say that with air quotes.
Yeah.
You can go hang out with them and do what you want. Like, that's the beauty of America, or what's supposed to be the beauty of America. We can do with our what we want as long as we're not hurting people, and get on with it. Like, you don't even have to like mingle with people you don't want to.
And the other thing is that in this whole thing, these people don't have to, if they're, Jesus and whatever, are they going to have to answer for me when they go to heaven? No.
Worry
They have
about
to
your
answer
own
for
sins,
themselves.
I believe.
So they should quit worrying about whatever I'm doing or what anybody else is doing, and worry about what the hell they're doing. Because you ain't going to answer for me when it comes to be my time. I'm going to have to answer for me.
Well,
So
here's
stay
the
out
thing.
of my business.
Here's the thing. I know Mormons are guilted into, why didn't you open your mouth? You could have said something. You could have shared the gospel with them. And, you're going to be judged for what you did, the things you didn't do when you had the opportunity. And, some religions are like that.
Yeah.
And it's very, this is what you do and this is how you live your life. And if you do not, ooh, yikes, you're really sinful and you can't, do all the, the regular churchy stuff with all the rest of the people that do all the regular churchy stuff because you're not quite good enough.
Jehovah's
it's
Witnesses.
kind of like that for everything.
My friend posted on Facebook once that he spent 7 years trying to clean up his act so he could be accepted into the church. And I'm like,
Yikes.
that's not how it's supposed to work at all.
Right?
Nah.
How many Christian songs say, come as you are? Like,
Well, and one of the things that's bothered that the part of why I like the idea of Christianity, I don't like the application of it. And one of my big problems with it, having worked retail, I know that you guys can relate to this, is nobody was ruder on a Sunday afternoon than the church people. Oh my God. They'd confessed their sins and they were clean for the week and they were ready to start sinning again. My God. And to me, the concept of I can confess my sins and be clean again and go back and do the thing again because I can just ask for forgiveness again. What the fuck? Like, consequences of your actions, dude. Like, you're supposed to do better. You're supposed to do better. Just asking for forgiveness is not adequate. Like, come on. Yeah, and so, like, you didn't, to me, I'm like, you didn't learn the lesson at all. You just learned that if I say I'm sorry, you have to forgive me and it's over. And now I can go do it again. No, baby, that's not how this works. That means you don't do it again and you learn why it was wrong and you treat people better next time. And some of them don't seem to buy into that part of it.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It is.
I feel really bad.
I did want to talk about.
Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to talk about, because one of the things I'm very fascinated about Catholicism and Christianity and so forth is Mary. Mary got a raw deal, y'all. Both Marys.
Which one?
Got a both of them. They got a raw fucking deal because
Jesus accepted
first
women.
of all, right.
Yeah.
Well, so having studied religion to some degree, I mostly focused on other faiths, but one of the big things is the Immaculate Conception is not Jesus, it's Mary. She had to be a perfect vessel. She's the Immaculate Birth, not him. And we forget that. And then when you come to Mary Magdalene, it is really clear from the scriptures and from non-canonical texts that she was his most devout apostle, more or less. And the dudes were shitting their bricks. They were so fucking jealous, talking shit about her. That's why some of them translate or call her a whore and stuff like that. When
they were just jealous because she was so fucking cool.
Right.
And the thing is,
I believe he was married to her.
Relationship with her.
Yeah.
I believe he was married to her.
Right, but they have spent centuries demonizing her as a whore and all these kinds of things when the scriptures are pretty clear that she was devoted to him and she was his right-hand woman, more or less, and that and
she was the one crying at his feet when he was on that cross.
None of the men were there at the crucifixion. The Marys and Elizabeth stayed to the end till his dying breath, and most of the men had to walk away.
Right.
They were
When
crying
he
with
was
his
resurrected,
mom.
that's who found them, was the women. Yeah,
Yeah.
not the men.
Because we're
And like,
compassionate
right?
and
That's
And
shit.
it's
fucking
We give a shit.
like,
right.
yeah, as soon as I started really looking at that and realizing that everything I'd been told about both of the Marys was bullshit, I was like, you know, come on, guys.
Crazy.
I don't think Mary was raped necessarily. Sick of it post.
It's definitely not clear. I
It's not
mean,
clear,
we
but
know scientifically that you can't get pregnant without intercourse.
right.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
I
also,
don't necessarily think she was a virgin.
well, I mean, wasn't she married? Was she already married to
Not when she wasn't married yet. To when
To
she found
Joseph?
out she was pregnant, she wasn't married. I think they quickly got married. So, well, Joseph wanted to quietly break off the engagement at first because she could be killed if she, was promised to Joseph and she had relations with somebody else. So he wanted to quietly do it, but then the angel came to him in a dream and said, "Don't do it. Don't, she's carrying God's child." And so then he quickly marries her so that when she's pregnant, they bought it. The timeline adds up to when she gives birth.
I think she was
So,
probably fairly young. I mean,
well,
I don't-
people in
I think
that
she
time
was
only lived
14.
till 30.
I think
Like,
she
Yeah.
was 14,
something
Yeah.
like that.
something like that. 8th grade, guys.
It's just, man, it says, and I also wanted to talk about the religious concept of arranged marriages. They don't happen so much in the Western faiths now, but they are very common in Islam and in some of the other faiths. And we're talking,
It's still done.
girls.
I know people who are
Yeah.
Hindu that live here that have arranged marriages for their daughter.
Yes, it's largely Hindu and Islam, and then there are a couple of very fundamentalist religious Christian sects that do something similar. But it's basically as soon as a girl has her period, she can be married off to the benefit of her family, of course, and the age of the person she is promised to is not an issue. I mean, come on, like, how insulting. You don't get to choose a person you have to spend the rest of your life with. A. B, it doesn't matter that he's, 3 times your age and, whatever. You
Well,
have no choice in the matter. Like,
it was a business transaction.
that's the thing. You're a
It's
business
for
transaction.
money,
Like, that's,
land, money.
or
We were
when
just
you look at the rural
part-
families, it was for political power and for not partnerships, whatever that word is. Alliances.
There you go. Yeah.
It came immediately. It came eventually.
And a
But,
lot
like,
of
think
like
about that today.
royalty.
Think about this today, Allison. If the day your daughter started her period, you began looking for her husband and looked
Oh
for
my
the highest
God.
bidder, can you fucking imagine? And the
Well,
sad thing
also,
is,
we have to-
these MAGA people would be cool with that, based on what they've said.
we can't really, like, as far as age, 2,000 years ago, like, you were lucky to live to 40.
the life expectancy was a
So,
lot shorter.
I don't
Right,
necessarily
but that's the whole point about the literal interpretation of the Bible. You're talking about rules and norms that were 2,000 years ago,
right,
when
yeah.
people
And
coughed
I was-
themselves to death on the reg. Like, come on.
And that's
Yeah,
why
and I was
God
gonna
said,
say it doesn't fucking matter anyway because it's 2024,
Right.
and how do we want to live today? My daughter started her period when she was I'm sorry, baby girl, if you ever fucking see this, when she was in the 4th grade.
I was 9.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, she was 9. And I don't feel comfortable having that be, she's 9. She's, could do that now. I just don't want to be looking for a mate
Yeah,
for
like,
her
no,
when
we
she's
don't
that age.
till
That's
30
bullshit.
if we're lucky. And I'm not saying that I like it's okay. Like God said in the Bible, we're supposed to have discernment. So common sense, like we don't have to live the way we lived 2,000 years ago. We don't have to have children 2,000 like we did 2,000 years ago.
Exactly.
And I have this
we don't
mantra
have to die from
that
an
if you want
infection.
to live like they did, I usually say, if you want to live like they did in the 1800s, you're going to die like they did in the 1800s. And that's the truth with go back 2,000 years. You're going to
Don't go to the hospital
gonna-
because they don't sanitize a motherfucking thing there. You'll die.
Right, like, no, that's exactly it. When our ancestors just a few generations ago, the reason they had 15, 20 kids is because you were lucky if 3 of them survived to adulthood, and they were probably going to die in a terrible way because there's no OSHA, no germ theory or control. There was, I mean,
Yeah, or a
but we don't
disease was
live in
going to
that world
render
now.
yeah, or a disease was going to render them blind or deaf or something, or without the use of their legs, because we had measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough, all of the things that we've worked so hard with our scientists and our technology to find ways around, because they're horrific ways to die. And would you ever want to see your baby go through that?
polio is awful.
It's 2024. We don't have to do this anymore, guys.
People,
Polio is
just
awful.
lines, man. Jesus.
Part of the
What's
arranged
better for
marriage
yourself?
part too, a part of the arranged marriage, and this is particularly true in Hindu culture, is that you lived in small groups, and so the men in your small group were probably related. And so by making a partnership with a neighboring tribe, you could ensure genetic diversity and continue your family line, etc. But we don't live in that world now. Like literally the entire world population, as long as they're connected to the internet, you can mate with. I mean, if you want to, and if they're willing.
There's
But
a way.
you know what I mean? Like, but your options aren't as limited as they once were. So we don't live in that world. And I'm not trying to demonize the world they lived in. It's not that. That was their reality. But it's not our reality.
Yeah. And we should be making rules for how things are in this world as they are right now.
Well, and why are they worrying about making legislation that puts us back in time when we have new modern concerns that we need to deal with? Climate change, the rise of AI, technological advancement, don't even get me started about late stage capitalism. Like there's a million things that do need our attention, and deciding who can have a baby and who can't, or whose health is more important, the baby or the mother's, or whose faith is more important or whatever, that ain't it.
Or is an egg a person?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're going way.
Yeah, they're going
and Tony's
hard.
Absolutely right when he says personhood is coming.
It's coming.
And I'm sorry, an egg is not a person.
It's not.
It's not even half a person. It's just an egg. Like I take an egg from a chicken. If I crack it and cook it, it wasn't fertilized. So I'm not.
If I'm gonna bleed every month, I will get in trouble for releasing that unfertilized egg and shit.
Yeah, like.
I don't. Stupid.
So all the eggs that are inside me now, can I claim them as dependents? Like, can I claim them as what if I miscarry? Can I claim that as a life insurance policy? Like let's get this straight, because if I'm carrying,
I want child support right motherfucking now.
And I miscarry, I want that life insurance because it's a person and a person died. So.
Well, hey,
I'm not serious, but the absurdity is
right.
I'm gonna need money for every single one of my eggs. How about that?
Right. If we could charge dues for child support for every egg the second it was fertilized, they'd have different opinions real fast.
Yeah.
On personhood.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Most definitely.
Yeah. Super Saint says cattle have more reproductive health care freedom in Texas than women. And the whole thing about rapists and parental rights, that's another day. But yeah.
Does anybody in the chat have any questions for any of the ladies here?
Yeah, questions.
There's been a wild active chat going on with some really cool
stuff.
Hey,
and thanks for sticking with us, because I know talking about religion and stuff is not always
it's not easy. But basically the message we wanted was like for women to hear, you don't have to stay in something. Yeah, it might be hard to leave. but you can, like, there's organizations, and if there's a will, there's a way. If you want your daughters to see something better, which is why I left, because I wanted my daughter to see something better, and my husband not treat me like my ex-husband did, like, you don't have to stay. You can find a way to get out. And they're just going to bully you and think that you can't, that they've worn you down. Like me, one reason why I had so much shame leaving my ex-husband, because like people like me who come from a good, well, my family isn't really good, but you know, my parents were together. They loved me. They cared for me. So as dysfunctional it was sort of functional. But like, you know, I'm educated. At that point, I had a master's degree. I know better. I know what abusive relationships look like. But he wore me down. Me, of all people, who thought I couldn't.
Yeah,
Like, I can do fucking anything.
They do
And
it
he had
little
me
by
thinking
little.
I couldn't live without him. So if any woman hears this, don't let. And God will love you no matter what. That's what it
And
says.
we don't
in the
want
Bible.
them. We don't want religion getting to make decisions about
You
our
gotta
health
go,
care.
because that's not a biblical
Well, and I don't-
marriage.
Right. I don't want to demonize all faith and all spirituality. I think, I mean, for me, you guys know I don't like labels. I don't consider myself anything in particular, but to me, being out in nature is the closest I feel to something larger in the universe, and the intricacies of nature and the amazing patterns and all that. Like, that is all the proof I need that there's something way larger and
The
smarter.
way
and
nature
wiser.
Absolutely.
intertwines with each other perfectly, like there's this perfect harmony and
Right.
balance to
You
it.
look at
all.
the trees and the grass, and you think everything is so intricate.
Like,
Like
Right.
it's
But like to me, what I tell people is you don't have to subscribe to exactly what someone tells you is the truth. You know it when you feel it, and you know it when you experience it, and pursue that. You know, go after that.
Can I tell you a story about that?
Hmm.
So
Please.
I'll tell you about the moment, and I'm going to cry, when I decided that I was just done with religion. I was 22, and I was sitting in a chapel, a Mormon chapel in South Carolina, North Augusta, South Carolina, which is confusing. It's right over the border between that and Georgia. And I was sitting there, and I was just overwhelmed by this feeling that if there was a God, and you know, this feeling that I've always felt that maybe there's something bigger that's maybe looking out for me, that presence is kinder than any church has ever said their God is. And what kind of God would kill of all of his children in a flood, and what kind of God would make some of his children gay and then demonize them or deny them, you know, families or children, happiness, companionship, being able to feel okay in their own skin without being told that they're evil or something like that. I mean, it never made sense to me, and it just filled me until it lifted me, and I ran out of there, and I never looked back. I went into my car and I closed the door and I started crying.
it's hard, especially when you've been raised that way your whole life,
I know.
and you feel and you're just that's
I know
that's
God wanted,
guilt.
if this was a God, God wanted me out of that, because the way things lined up for me to leave, the way, like the perfect synchronicity that happened, like people just were there for me, because I was going to my parents in New York. So people like just lined up on my trek to New York where I could stay, because my daughter was like, I think she was like going to be 2. So like she's real young. So I can't do the 15 hours straight like I used to be able to do. You know, I have to stop.
Hike,
And so like it just, everything lined up. And the way I found out the breaking point, like it felt like somebody literally took me and shook me, like it was just crazy. That's another podcast, but like, I know what you mean. Like when you feel like just when something like transcends almost over you. And that is so much kinder than any church or any formal religion or any book could have ever made me
Well,
feel.
and think about the way you feel when you hear really beautiful music or see a beautiful piece of art or a beautiful sunset or whatever. Like, if that ain't holy, I don't know what is.
Right? It's the
And
little things about being alive and being human and just this
yeah,
happy
well,
accident that we're here in the first place. It's
Yeah.
the
yeah.
wind in your fingers or the sunrise as you're sitting
Enjoy
on
your
the beach.
time while you're here.
Yeah.
And like I'm not a particularly superstitious person, but like when my mom passed, we were standing in East Texas on her little porch in the middle of nowhere, middle of the piney wood, and a Luna moth in the middle of the day landed on the porch. My mother loved Luna moths.
Those
They're
are the big
not
ones,
particularly
right?
common. Yeah, the big green ones. I have a
Oh,
tattoo of it on my shoulder.
Oh,
And me and my sister looked at each other. We're like, "That's mom. Like that moth does not belong in this location in
not at that
April
time of day.
at all."
Yeah.
And that's mom. And I had an experience up here where I'm sitting in my car, horrible day, crying my eyes out, and this little brown moth comes through my window. I'm smoking a cigarette, sits on my hand, and I'm like, I know that's you, mom. Thank you. You know, or seeing a cardinal, that's my dad.
yeah.
Is it? I
Yeah,
don't fucking
that
I
care if
see
it
it.
is or
I do
not.
too.
In that
all of a
moment, I
sudden,
feel connected to the universe.
Yeah.
I've lived in my
And
home
if it's
for
not real, I don't care.
I've lived in my home for on and off since 2011. So a long time in this one spot. And let me tell you something. When I first moved in, there were no cardinals ever. There were like chickadees and Carolina wrens and all, robins, mockingbirds, no cardinals. So my grandfather passes away and I was very, very devastated and very close to my grandfather. So I've heard that like if you see a cardinal, it's like an angel or something sweet and sappy like that. And I was really missing him. So I was like, I said out loud, Grandpa, I could really use a cardinal right now. And wouldn't you know it, like later that day, I'm driving my friends and cardinals are everywhere. And after that, around that time, I don't want to say that day, cardinals are always in my backyard now. They're one of the, we have like a Discovery Channel in our backyard. It's a really Discovery Channel. It's
I
really
love it.
funny. Like
I have a bird here that's it's either my mom or my brother every time, because I'm like, like just.
Well, and one of the great things, one of the things about organized religion that really appeals to our human brains is the ceremony of it, the pomp,
Yes,
the
I do
sacredness
miss
the
of it,
that
ritual, the habit.
Yeah.
the ritual.
Humans
Yeah,
love
and
habits.
think about. So this is something we studied when I was in undergrad. What makes sacred space and sacred time? We as humans create that in a church by saying this building is only used for this purpose, and we only use this incense, and we only light these candles, and we only play this music when we're in this place, and we wear these special clothes when we're in this place. That's what makes it sacred. Okay, well, based on the teachings in the Bible, not that I give a fuck, that can be anywhere. Your temple can be the bird feeder in your backyard that's covered in cardinals, and you can go have yourself an awesome little ritual out there by generating an atmosphere that feels sacred to you, that feels special to you. And if it's, the flowers you love and the song you love, and in that moment you feel connected to the universe, go after that, baby. Like that's the place. It doesn't have to be a building a man built and told you was special. That ain't necessarily special. What's special is the moment that brings you peace. And that, because think about it, there are how many billions of people on this earth, and the universe created you and said you need to be here too. So celebrate that and show them why the universe needed you.
And be good
That's
to
my
each
motivational
other.
thought for
We
the day.
need. I mean, people need to be better to each other, and
Not just like people who don't believe, like people
yeah,
who
just
are Christians or believe need to be good to each other. But if you don't believe, you need to be good to each other.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Just
Like-
be kind to everyone if you can, because you never know what another person is going through. A smile.
Yeah, or if some people their faith is everything. Don't condemn them for that.
No.
Like I said, even if you have thoughts and opinions, they don't always have to. You don't always have to say it every time someone says, "Oh, I'm going to church." You don't need to vocalize what a demon church is. You know, like let's be good to one another. You know, you don't have to say
So
everything that
I
comes
wanted
into
to
your head.
mention, going back to the Pride thing and tying into faith. So we had Pride weekend. 3 of our people that were involved in our Pride committee were religious people. We have a priest who was formerly Catholic. He's a denomination of Catholic now, but I can't remember what. He's out and married to a man and is just the most amazing human being I've ever met in my life. I have not often felt comfortable with openly religious people because I always felt like they were just waiting to tell me why I was going to hell, or they did tell me why I was going to hell. He's just not that. He's just not that kind of human. Like, he is one of those people that when I am in his presence, he makes me want to learn more about what he believes because he's living it. And like, be that person, please. Use your faith to be the person you want the rest of the world to see. And there's 2 others involved in that. And when we did the proclamation last year, one of the churches, I think it was Episcopal, but I can't say for sure, out of the blue said, "Hey, can I see the mic?" And we're like, "Yeah." And she had brought a statement from their diocese apologizing to the LGBTQ community for how the church had let them down over the years, and they vowed to do better. And it was, I mean, tears, because so many people have so much religious trauma. It was just such a beautiful thing.
I bet that
My
was really
favorite
healing.
picture, yeah, my favorite picture this year from our block party is the priest I was talking about hugging one of the drag queens, and they are like, it looks like a father hugging his child.
Like a bear hug.
It is.
Oh, that's
It is the
sweet.
most touching, beautiful
Mm,
picture. And like the second I saw it, I
lovely.
started sobbing because like when you know that he's a priest and that's and he's hugging a drag queen, you're like, this is the image the world needs to see. This is love.
Right?
Like it was, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's so beautiful and it gives me hope. So, live your faith, but you don't gotta live it by hating other people. Like, live the good parts of it.
Most people are, especially in Discord, most people are shocked when they hear pretty faithful, even though I don't go to church anymore. But I used to be very like, on the when because my pastor like that left and everything changed after that. Like he just knows he's a scholar. That's why I got along with him so well. He's a scholar. So he knew like the most obscure stuff about like how all the different Gnostic gospels interweave into one another and why they were included or why they were excluded or why this, like he had
And that
so
made
much
your librarian
knowledge.
nerdy heart so happy.
Oh, of course it did. Like, you know it. I loved his sermons because they were so filled with like context and like, they were meaty and
that's one of the great things
Yeah.
about this guy. We became friends when we did the coming out film together a couple of years ago. And then Derek's mom was passing and she was Catholic and it was important to her. And she was already unconscious. And Derek is an avowed heathen. And him and his mom always fought about faith. But he was like, I want to get her last rites. Like I need to do that for her. And I'm like, I don't know anybody. Wait a second. Yeah, I do. And so I messaged him on Facebook and said, hey, I know we don't know each other very well, but my partner that you've met one time, his mother's passing and she's Catholic, and could you do last rites? And he's like, I'm an hour away on an errand, but I'm on my way. And then he messaged me again and he goes, I thought I had my vestments in the car, but I don't. Is that okay? And I'm like, dude, you could show up in jeans and flip-flops. I don't fucking care. And then he says, shit, I don't have my holy oil. I'm going to pick some up and bless it, I swear. And I'm like, dude, I don't care if you sprinkle water from the water fountain on her. This isn't for me. Like, good presence is what I want. And he sat there holding her hand, has never met her, telling her, I know you're a beautiful human because you've made this amazing man. And I wish I could have known you in life. And it felt so genuine. And then he sat there talking to Derek for like an hour about religion and just very openly, lovingly talking about all of it. It was amazing. And if you've talked to Derek, you know how he is about religion. So you know what a big deal it was that he was speaking to a priest in this much detail and was like, oh my God, I love this dude. Like, it was powerful. Like, that's my kind of Christian, man. I love it.
And there's a lot of wonderful
means, but
pastors and Christians out there. And that's what I also try to like, we hear about the really shitty ones and they have the loudest voices, but there are some really wonderful people of faith.
They should want to reclaim their faith from these people.
And you know what? A lot of them are. a lot of them are starting like, but it's kind of like librarians. Like you'd understand this. Like when we started being demonized, like ALA didn't really know how to react. Most of us didn't know how to, because we've always been the respected profession. So I think it was
And we suck
kind
at
of
self-promotion.
yeah, and I think it was kind of the same way. And then they were just trying to get along, hoping that Trump would pass. And now they have to get involved. Like, and if you like, I noticed groups, even Dolly fucking Parton is getting, and she never gets political, and they tried to come after her. And they fucked around and found out. You don't make fun of Dolly.
No.
Fucking a false gospel.
Come for Dolly.
Your mind.
You don't fuck with.
That's gonna get me all
fuck with
bent.
the queen,
like,
I know. I'm like, no.
Do you know what the I think it was the Federalist Society wrote how Dolly's preaching a false gospel. They ended up apologizing. People got so mad that they were going after Dolly and MAGA was going after Dolly that they issued an apology. That is how famous and wonderful she is.
She's a beautiful human being inside and out. Dolly does so much.
She does so much. So many people. Tennessee Brando has a video. He just released it today about why he's mad about Dolly getting. They tried to cancel her. And
Big man. You don't.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, if y'all don't know about Dolly, go look it up. She buys like band uniforms for disadvantaged high schools.
And every time I
millions, she's donated millions for literacy.
Yeah, if you're born in the county that I think she still lives in or has her home in, then you can sign up and she'll send your the kid that was born there a book every week for 5 years.
She does it all over the country now. It's expanded.
Yeah, it's nationwide.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and she also invests in the families of
Sevier
County.
She would expand it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's all over the country now. It's not everywhere, but it's most.
That's the most Christian thing you can do.
Exactly. And she doesn't talk about it. She doesn't brag about it. She just quietly goes about doing good things with what she's been given in life.
That song makes me cry every time I hear that song. I don't know why, but Dakota Many Colors and how proud she was to wear that because her mother made it. Bless that.
Yet she donated like $2 million to Vanderbilt, and it helped lead to the vaccine. And she didn't tell anybody it was her. Somebody else leaked it. Like
she's donated millions to children's hospitals of various types. Like she does it quietly.
Elvis did the same stuff, and a lot of people didn't know it.
I just learned what a philanthropist Elvis was. I had no idea because I've never really been into Elvis, but or anything like that. I mean, some of his songs are good, but that's not our era really.
Right. So, but I mean, I don't know. I kind of liked Elvis, but I just knew that he, especially polio, vaccine came out. Mm-hmm. He went on TV and was like, "Hey kids, I gotta go get your polio vaccine." He helped start he's the one that pretty much got St. Jude built, hospital.
Yes, I didn't know all of that.
He used to give people he didn't know cars, money, house. I mean, anything. He would read every single fan letter, and he would get. I mean,
he's got some problematic stuff. I mean, Priscilla was pretty damn young, but I just read a story. He's human. I just read a story the other day that he was looking for a new Cadillac, and he was at a dealership, and there was an old lady looking at a car, and he was talking to her about it, and she was like, "Well, I can't afford one," and he was like, "Pick one out," and he bought it. Didn't know her, and I'm like, "That's how." Why can't we have billionaires like that now? Like, what the fuck?
Man? Like, why can't
what happened to building libraries? Like, Carnegie spent billions in today's money.
Yeah.
Building libraries all over.
Well, Elvis grew up very poor, and he knew what it was like not to have anything.
We should give credit.
Yeah. Sorry.
Maybe that's something worth looking into. Like
and gender. Dolly too. They were poor.
I'm wondering, like, gender-based charitable giving in people that are obscenely wealthy. Like, you hear about, like, Mrs. Bill Gates or ex-Bill Gates or what. I'm terribly sorry, ma'am. I forget your name. I'm so sorry. But you hear about her charitable giving all the time. She's always doing cool stuff, always doing good things. And like Suzanne mentions, Taylor Swift's always doing it too. A lot of these really wealthy women are always doing really, really good things, giving back,
Right.
building, expanding, building community, putting it back into, paying it forward, paying it back, as women tend to do. I don't know. I just think it would be interesting to see,
If there's a
especially
correlation.
yeah. And I'm reminded a couple months back of the gal that inherited couple $1 billion like in stocks or something from a departed husband, and she gave it to a college, so that it was a medical college, so that they could have free tuition in perpetuity. Amazing. We could do that all over the place, and they would still have plenty of money left over.
Yeah.
Yeah, why wouldn't you want that to be your legacy?
You know,
Like there's
feed
plenty
kids
of
at
jokes.
school. How hard is it?
Yeah, like they
Feed kids
freak
at
the
school?
fuck out over free lunches, which really doesn't cost all that much money.
No.
Yeah, Elon could give his salary for 1 hour and it would take care of free lunches throughout most of the country.
Yeah.
For at least a state, at the very least an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, someone has a joke that they don't believe in billionaires, and after the first billion, you get a dog park, and then the rest of your money you get a dog park named after you, and then the rest of your money goes into charity. And I'm like, I'm for that. We need
Down.
more dog parks too. So
Right?
I think Mrs. X Jeff Bezos, I think it was her. Might have been Mrs. X Bill Gates,
Okay.
but she donated like
Melinda.
a few.
Thank you, Amy. I'm so sorry.
She donated like a lot of money to an LGBTQ, I believe it was LG organization, and someone criticized her for it, so she doubled the donation. I love it. I love boss bitches.
I do too.
Jim makes a point that at this point, homelessness and hunger and medical debt are all choices in the U.S. Thank you, Reagan. It's Reaganomics. Like, we have, richest country in the world, blah, blah, blah. And instead of investing in these things that would keep people alive and permit them to have somewhat decent lives, and instead we spend it on the that fucking ugly Tesla truck thing and,
Oh my God.
Cyber truck.
Cut truck.
yeah, buyouts for rich, billionaires, and fuck that.
But a free lunch for a kid, that is a bridge too far, because you're showing him there's a handout and there ain't no hand.
Yeah,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh God, that's communism.
Okay, so two things. If I was in the dating market, two things would be a definitive, like, what do you call it?
Red flag, non sequitur.
Red flag, or
Non-starter.
game,
No go.
non-starter. That's what I was
Game
looking
over.
for. Okay, so dude drives the cyber truck and doesn't want kids to get school lunches. Oh, and if you don't tip your waiter or waitress, that's a non-starter too.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot handle the school lunch
Dude, if
people.
I had to be in the dating world again, I'd be like, I'm okay. I guess. Mm-mm.
Oh, I was such a dork when I was dating my husband, because
I'm like, there's
the
no
person I dated after my divorce. So I was like in those rom-coms of taking out my hair, and I was like, no, I better put it back up, and I felt so stupid.
Yeah. I know.
So it's almost 9:30. Next week we will not have a show because we have some travel happening for some people.
Yeah, and life's happening. So we will take a break for
We're gonna
next
break.
week. But then we will be back the week after, whatever day that is. So the 27th, I think that is. And I don't know what we're going to talk about, but it'll be better than adequate. And
There was a question in the chat about whether there's a ladies' room chat in Discord, and we
There
have
is.
one sort of, but but there's only like us
There's a
and I
thread
think
there, too.
Gottfried and Farmley in there. Is it open to everybody?
I thought I made it open, but you know what?
Okay, the one
If there isn't a ladies chat, I will make one, and I'll develop a role so you can get ladies
Yeah.
stuff like, and
And
tag
Absolutely.
announcements.
for the
Yeah,
the
And
so
any,
I'm sure
you know,
Tony would mind.
ideas of things to talk about,
And we will. So we had Farmley on a couple of weeks ago. Was that last week? I don't remember time.
I know.
Yes,
There will be
I'm
times
sorry.
when someone is out and we sub someone else in, or when we just feel like subbing somebody in, or whatever. So those of you who are interested,
Yeah, let us
please
know.
let us know that you are interested. Please let us know topics that you would be interested in, etc., etc. This is a group effort.
Because really,
not
we just see
just us.
something on the news and someone will say, I'm mad about this. I want to talk about it. So
That's true.
so
And switching out too is kind of gives a different point of view from somebody else because
Gives
everybody's
more ladies
different.
chances to
So-
tell their stories.
Got to switch it up a little bit and let everybody have a chance if they are up to it, because we're just here
Erica
to
says that was 3 weeks ago. Sorry, Erica.
educate and help, people. So
Super Saint says,
and
"Pick
it's
me,
it's
pick
low,
me."
very low key too. Like we don't
Yeah.
have any expectations. Like I said, our mantra is better than adequate. We have it in Latin too. I
Yeah.
forgot what it is. It's something quam satis.
I think,
Melius quam satis.
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that right. Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, we don't really ever have a plan or
No.
it's a loose outline of
We
things
just go
we
with the
might wanna hit,
flow,
but
man.
better than adequate.
Sometimes you just need to rant.
We're the
By the way, I want to give a
slackers
shout
of
out
the
to
podcast
Vix, who
world.
has some rad ass blue curls going on. Those
Yeah.
are killer.
They're
Yeah, those are-
purple. I gotta
Yeah.
redo them.
They're
again.
purple.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
It looks blue in
I'm
the.
so jealous.
Oh, there it. Yeah, now I see it as purple.
I still got some purple. So
Yeah, I love how yours is kind of like mixed in and like underneath. It's so
Mhm.
cool.
I like to be fun. I hate boring.
Yeah, as soon as I got out of the army, I was like, I'm dyeing my hair all the fucking
Yeah.
colors. And I did. So I dyed my whole hair blonde, and then I did a big chunk of it teal, and then a chunk of it bubblegum green or bubblegum pink, and then the rest of it I just left like white. It was really cool.
I let my daughter get green hair. And it wasn't all green. It was just like like her front
yeah,
part.
a little
And,
bit.
but
Like in the summer or something. Because would they let her
Oh
wear
no,
that?
we did it after her birthday is after
Okay.
Christmas, so her birthday present was getting it professionally done, and it was a huge
So
beauty day
cool.
and stuff.
Ooh.
Because I didn't want her to
Awesome.
try to do it on her own and then mess
Yeah,
it
and
up.
you don't want to
and
damage your hair. Or
I didn't want her to
anything.
have I didn't do the hair in the Kool-Aid thing, but I knew people who did the hair Kool-Aid hair thing in school, and it was an epic fail. So
Yeah. And
but there was
it's
no
hard
dress
to come
code.
out too.
But it looked really cool. It looked really neat. The lady did a very professional job. It wasn't gaudy or anything like that.
It's just fun. It's just fun.
Yeah, it was just fun.
It's just fun.
Well, and now
Girls
that my
just wanna
hair
have
is
fun.
turning
Cyndi
completely
Lauper,
white.
I wanted her hair. I
Hmm?
remember being in the 80s wanting Cyndi Lauper's hair because I was like, man, she's so freaking rad because she wears her hair ever she wants it. And it was like 2 different colors and shit. I was like, yeah. But
Does that go again?
sorry, got all yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
All right. Well, friends, we got to get going. Thanks for playing.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, everybody,
Adieu
for being here.
adieu. Bye, friends.
See you next time.
Awesome chat tonight.